In today's business world, change is the only constant, and mastering transformation is the ultimate key to success. Welcome to Shift and Thrive. I'm your host, Natalie Nathanson. Each week, we'll bring you conversations with CEOs who delve into how they successfully drove critical change in their organization. This show is sponsored by Magnitude Consulting, bringing you the thinking power of a growth consultancy and the getting it done power of a full-service B2B marketing agency. Today's guest is a serial entrepreneur and expert in high-performance computing with over 20 years of experience. He's held senior leadership roles at Microsoft, Dell EMC, and Yahoo, and played key roles in 3 M&As. He's also the author of the book, The Essential Criteria of Graph Databases. His current company focuses on real-time graph database systems for sectors including banking, insurance, and healthcare. He is the founder and CEO of Tupa. Ricky-san, welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning, Natalie. It's very kind of you. Great introduction.
Thank you. It's very well deserved, and I'm looking forward to the conversation today. And I want to start this episode a little differently. I usually kick things off by asking leaders to unpack a specific change that they've led through. But in your case, I'd love to start by zooming out a bit. And one of the things that stood out to me when we first connected was something you said about how your mindset as a founder has shifted over time and moving from kind of being more reactive towards something more kind of intentional and grounded, which is, I think, a journey that a lot of leaders can relate to, but not a lot of people talk about, or at least kind of very honestly. So would love to start there. And if you could maybe take us back to a time of like when that shift started for you, what was going on in the business or in your life that made you kind of think through that?
Yeah, well, this is a lovely question. Talking about me and hopefully my team shifting from a reactive mode to intentional mode. Well, there's other ways to put it, like proactive ways, but I think intentional is something totally different. Well, let me explain this. As a serial entrepreneur or anyone working in a startup environment, a lot of things may happen on a daily basis. Trust me. So, just too much. Most of us, when we are unconsciously working in that environment, stepping into that environment, we tend to be reactive, meaning we are constantly under stress. It could be very stressful life. I think like about 15 years ago, like I was going through some sort of a spiritual license with my wife. We were like startup partners for life for almost 20 years. My wife was like truly inspirational to me, from that perspective. I thought, she told me, why don't you try something else instead of being, reactive? Oh my God, something going to happen. Something is when we are in such kind of, mood, especially bad things going to happen or something negative going to happen. So then like, basically I would say it's sort of a meditation plus something else. You need to train yourself. You need to be in a mood, it's something different, something like you are beyond being more proactive. You enjoy life. You enjoy being in, the startup environment. You're creating, with other brilliant people. Then you were basically constantly expecting something positive, something good going to happen to you and to your business, to yourself. Nothing bad going to happen. I don't even think about bad things or negative things. I'm losing this deal. I'm losing that customer. I'm not going to make it this week or this month. So it's a training. It takes time to cultivate, the sense and basically align your physical, your emotional, your spiritual being together so that you can do things, much better, much faster, much more comfortable. I'm not sure I put it, perfectly here, but hopefully you got a point.
Yeah. And I think it seems like the kind of thing that is maybe a lifelong lesson and that you need to start, but it takes time and then continues to kind of bear greater fruits over time. But can you talk for people that, like myself, maybe who are not kind of as familiar with this? How did you do it? What are the things someone should be doing or thinking about or working on?
Perfect. Now this is a recommendation time. There's a perfect app. Funny, we're in this iPad or iPhone, era. And actually, I think the app is called in let me it, the app is called Empower You, published by Hay House. Uh, last time we talked about Louise Hay. Uh, this lady made her transition, I think about 9 years ago, back in 2016, when she was 90 years old. Uh, she was born in Los Angeles, I believe, and so she founded Hay House. I think the sole purpose of Hay House is trying to help people who are willing to be awakened. And I think they have a lot of videos. No, I mean videos, instructions, meditations, everything, even music. You can just listen to them, either consciously or unconsciously, like subconsciously while you're in sleeping mode. There are a lot of ways to really help you and elevate your consciousness to a level so that you can really create a lot of things that you're probably not able to create when you're, in a lower conscious level.
Huh.
So, I mean, then it's complicated. I don't want to, explain this for too much, but I truly recommend. You're gonna love it. Empower You. That's the app.
All
You're
right.
gonna
All
love
right.
it.
You'll definitely check it out. Do you have
Yeah.
an example of something that, you talked about being able to kind of do things that weren't possible for you before? Do you have an example of something that you did or created in the business that wouldn't have been possible in kind of your old
Oh,
way of thinking?
totally, totally. I mean, there are a lot of examples, but I'm probably gonna give you one or two of really specific examples. Like for instance, there was a major deal like we have been working on. But because we got the deal, I mean, we got notification of the deal last minute, and a lot of people are panicked. Then, as a founder and co-founder, me and my wife, so we said, let's pray for the best. Let's not only pray for the best, let's basically, like all of us, divide and conquer this, this huge problem. Let's hope we can do this within like 72 hours. But meanwhile, let's also hope like the buyer, whoever procure this, system, they're going to wait for us. They're going to like specifically send a message to us or, reach out to us. We want them to reach out to us to give us more time to work on this. So I think within the last 24 hours before the deadline, I mean, the buyer did reach out to us. They said they didn't know Tupa was, existent. And they want to give us like 3 more days to finalize everything so that we can ignore the deadline. I mean, this kind of privilege is like a miracle, And so, I mean, some kind of things happen.
Very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, like the 8 of us who have been working on this deal, basically we join our hands, together so that we pray that someone can reach out in a very positive, loving way.
And it sounds like it worked. Let me ask, is this something that was kind of intuitive to others on your team, or was this something kind of very, very different way of thinking for some of your staff? And how did you kind of manage that?
Oh, totally. This is a very important question. So, uh, there are multiple ways to handle this. A common way, which is actually much more difficult, even though it's very common, like they always, asking the founders to be not judgmental and understanding everything. That is just impossible. It's too hard. It's too big a question for founders. Too much pressure on the founders. So I guess we started something like, even from day one, then we prayed to God, to heaven, that we want someone with similar kind of a consciousness, energy level, chemistry, like synchronized with us. And we know, we pray that, this guy going to join us. And so we're going to work together very happily ever after. That's the kind of thing, we do. But now we have a team about 100 people globally. So I wouldn't say we 100% achieved all of that. So people have different ideas. We can't know beforehand, but we're trying to see, are these people flexible? Are they open-minded enough to listen to us? Like, are they, practicing the same kind of a meditation we practice? Basically do the recommendations all the time. I wouldn't say it's a brainwashing. I think it's a better way to communicate, a better way to work. And who wouldn't want it? I mean, we all want to be happily work together. So, we do that kind of thing all the time.
Mhm. Sounds like a very unique culture. And with 100 people, that growth is impressive to have carried that through. I'm curious to ask you, I'm someone who is pretty risk adverse, and I think that carries its way through, how I look at the business, how I make plans in the business. You had earlier mentioned, um, kind of believing things will work out and having kind of that positive, attitude. How do you, kind of pair the two, like de-risking your kind of decisions with kind of that belief that everything will work out? How do you think about that?
That's a very good point. I, it's funny enough. I would say before I was awakened, I'm using the word awakened, like 15 years ago. Like a lot of people say, I'm risk avert. I'm not. I chase after risk. But now I don't view risk as risk. I look at, risk as how much opportunities we're looking at, and, how much we can get into it, and, how much that's going to benefit all of us, benefit, our customer, our partner, but my team. So I think I'm trying to, eradicate the word risk or suffer from my dictionary. I'm not sure if that's too crazy, but this is like the kind of thing I'm thinking about all the time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for that. I'll need to digest that a bit and see what of that I can consume for myself.
Yeah.
One other question for you on this topic is, when we previously spoke, you talked about kind of the Eastern versus Western philosophies and how kind of this notion from Eastern philosophies has kind of brought this through. And I think there was something you said, have, do, be, or something
Oh,
um,
yeah.
to that effect. Can you explain that for our listeners?
Oh, totally. Totally. Well, actually, let me put it this way. It's called a be, do, have. So I think this is like, it's really a merge between Eastern and Western cultures, not just cultures. I mean, this is like Eastern philosophy and Western philosophy. Like Louise Hay, the lady, uh, she also talked about this. And also, I think the ancient Chinese philosopher like Lao Tzu also talked about this. Uh, most of us, when we are not in a very high conscious mode, you know, and I think we tend to we do not believe in be do have. Be do have means you are a spiritual being fundamentally, and you be in certain mood or state, then you start doing something, then you will be achieving something. That's the three stages: be, do, have. But most people do it totally, the other way. Like, let me have some money, more money, so that I can do a lot of great things. Then I will be happy. Trust me, all of us, 99.9% of people think in this way. I'm so poor. I'm so poverty stricken. I want to have something first. After that, I can start doing something, then being something. That's why we'll continue to be experiencing that kind of a poverty stricken, suffering from not having something. So we need to change it. We need to switch things around so that we can we, the I think the prerequisite is that we truly believe if we are spiritual beings, then we can create a lot of things. That's the fundamental difference. So be do have is very important. And it's very simple, but it's also very complicated because it's beyond philosophy. It takes a whole life to practice it.
Yes, yes, I can certainly believe that. It also makes me think of something else. I've talked to a couple guests on the podcast recently, maybe at a different level, but kind of to bring yourself to a new mode or a new kind of zone of achievement is embody who you want to be and kind of be that person already. So the example, I think it was Rich Walker was one of the conversations I had. He gave the example of wanting to improve his fitness and saying, I am a bodybuilder, not I want to be a bodybuilder. And then what are the things that he kind of did differently, that he thought about differently in his day to day? Similar example with kind of embodying, I am a Fortune 500 CEO. And that really reframes everything in someone's mind.
Yeah, that's a great way to manifest. So manifestations all the time, constantly. It's called a constant manifestation.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Thank you for sharing all of that. And, we've
Cool.
been talking a lot about this, mindset and how you show up as a leader. I'd love to bring some of this into the present and ask you, what's something that you're working on right now, like whether in the business or something personally that's either really stretching you as a leader or bringing you kind of the most energy or new energy?
Right. So let's talk about work. So we have about 100 people globally. So communication is a totally challenging kind of thing, especially, we started growing during the pandemic. We couldn't travel for about almost 2 years, right? Back in 2020 and 2021. And that's the time we started setting up when we were back in Silicon Valley. So we started setting up, our Asian office. We have multiple offices in Asia and also setting up our European office. Uh, the funny thing, we had a few employees back in Europe, but the funny thing that before 2023, we never, before 2023, we never met. We never met physically. So can you imagine that we are spending millions of dollars every year, in those 2 years, but we never met those employees. We're paying them, multi-million dollars we're talking about. So that's pretty crazy. Uh, but then how, like I normally, I wouldn't say, everybody's perfect because we let go a few guys, but there were a couple, you know, core, core people. Core persons, really great. I think in any office, if you have one great person who are, who is very spiritually aligned with you, that's my definition, then you can feel very comfortable that you're going to have a great team there working, coherently with the headquarter people. Uh, so, but, but then still, really running into people who are so, I wouldn't say backwardish. I think that's not the right word to say, but sometimes you might run into people who just want to get your paycheck month after month, but not really, no intention to generate anything, no intention to create anything, positive results. Then that can be really tough to handle, especially globally. I think all the countries, they are protecting these kind of employees. So there isn't much we can do. After all, not all of us are as tough, as abundant as Elon Musk. So
Yep.
so we did run into that kind of situation, on quarterly basis. That can be very stressful.
Mhm.
Because handling, I would love to talk to customers all the time, but also I need to spend much more time, handling domestic issues. All the company-wide issues. So that can be very stressful. And that's probably why I need a lot more meditation to soothe myself down.
Yeah. Well, I think that point about looking for employees that are not just looking to check the box. It's so important, I would say, for every company, but especially in startups and small businesses,
Yes,
where there's
totally.
no room for fluff, right? You need every role you bring on is critical to the business. Every dollar spent is critical. And I know for our business too, like for us looking at, how we interview people, like how we
Right.
interview candidates and try to understand kind of why do they want this role? What can we learn about, their uh, past roles that they've had, about how they think, how they work, what motivates them, is just so important. And I would imagine with the kind of growth that you've had, needing to do that in a scalable way because you're adding lots of people in a span of a few years.
Totally. Because we don't, while we are growing, we don't want people, internally putting us down.
Right. Right. For sure. For sure. Um, I'd love to talk a little bit about things on the go to market side of your business,
Yeah.
especially given you're kind of a founder of a very technical and complex solution. And I can say that we've worked with many tech companies where the biggest challenge wasn't necessarily the competition; it was prospects that didn't necessarily know how to evaluate what they were buying or didn't know kind of there was a solution out there for the kind of problem that they had.
Totally.
Um, and so we need to really help like reframe the problem before you can even really like, effectively talk about the solution. So I guess with what you're doing, I would imagine there's some kind of educating of the market that you need to do and kind of comparing it maybe to like traditional databases. How do you think about that balance of, educating the market while also kind of building pipeline and closing deals? And, what does that look like in your world?
Totally. We are actually, day in, day out, we are working on that. Even though we are, there are much bigger players in our domain, like other pre-IPO company, they have thousands, over 1,000 people, and we have only 100. So they are at least 10 times, larger. But we are like all the companies in this domain, I think are trying to educate the market. We are doing our share of the contribution, to educate the market. So as if you look at our LinkedIn, so we are actually on weekly basis, we are promoting free tutorials like training videos. It's 100% free. And we are promoting GQL. For instance, because we're building graph database and we're lucky, we're very fortunate, uh, a graph database market has an international standard, which is called the GQL, Graph Query Language. And it was released, it's an international standard, ISO standard. It was released last year. And I think all the companies in this domain are working very hard to be compliant because we're adopting this standard. But but we need to create a lot of training videos, basically massive education to the market, especially, well, imagine this. There are 100 more times customers, they only know SQL. The standard has been out there for over 40 years and they don't know nothing about GQL. And we need to tell them there's GQL, it's powerful, it solves a lot of problems that you are not able to solve using SQL. Now look at our GQL. Then if you learn something from us, something critical that can solve your problem, if you believe, then adopt our technology and product. So that's, how we do that all the time. I think our technical writing team are spending most of their time creating internal technical documents and also publishing online, all those videos and training materials. Uh, that's what we do. It's sort of an indirect go-to-market. There
Mhm.
are, as a startup, we are also proactively reaching out, like to the major enterprise customers or prospects, reach out to them, telling them we have this kind of technology, or asking our existing customers, especially major, like government agencies or financial institutions, asking them to help spread the word. Output is a great product, great team. They can support larger business operations. So trust them. That's how we, reach out. Of course, occasionally we sponsor conferences, that kind of things. But from my experience, probably we haven't done enough, like the bigger player, the larger players like Oracle. They probably sponsor all kinds of events, maybe 1,000 times more than us. That's something I think we are still trying to figure out. What can be the
Yeah.
most cost-effective way to go to market?
Right, right. I wish there was a silver bullet answer to that, but there are so many variables that go into that, and we know the world
Yeah,
around us is changing really quickly. But
yeah,
I like that you mentioned the combination of um, like having the technical team doing that technical content because it needs to be authentic. It needs to be driven by what's in the
right.
solution, what's happening in the market. And I think I find sometimes companies will lean too either in that direction or purely kind of thought leadership and the role of the CEO and the executive in kind of higher level like positioning. And I think that
Right.
combination of the technical and kind of the business level thought leadership about what's changing and the impact, and that's a powerful combination.
Right. Yeah.
What's been something in your go to market that you've recently changed or that you're working on based on kind of the experience that you've had the last couple of years?
Right. So I think I just talked about that. I think on quarterly basis, we sponsor international events. Like we do that pretty much globally in APAC, in EMEA, and even in South America. So we do that on quarterly basis. And the funny thing that, attending such kind of conferences is a very, I think it's a very interesting experience. Employees, they love traveling. Me too. I travel internationally. I enjoy doing that. But the problem is that there are thousands of vendors, like stand by the booth, and there are tens of thousands of customers or prospects coming in. And well, even though we try to laser focus, on which particular visitors they are possibly, can be converted into a buying customer. That's our ultimate goal, right? So that we can sell our product and service. But I think normally this doesn't turn out very, very well in terms of ROI. You spend $10,000 sponsoring that event, and if you get one deal, even one deal, that well, this is database. We're talking about a list of $100,000, right? Annual licensing support. So that's going to be great ROI. But I oftentimes we don't really have it takes a very long time to convert. So from go to market, from sales funnel perspective, I think we need to accelerate. We need to broaden the funnel, and also we need to accelerate the buying or the trying and buying process. How we can convince our potential customers to accelerate on that can be very important. I think that's critical.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, and I think with conferences, like you said, when you're kind of the smaller company and there's much bigger players, you see companies that are spending, $100,000,
Yeah.
$500,000 on maybe sometimes just the booth. I was just at
Yeah.
a big cybersecurity conference a couple of weeks ago, RSA, and you see what the big exhibitors are spending. And a lot of the types of companies we work with, they don't have those kind of budgets. So we have to be a lot
Right.
smarter about how are we using speaking engagements? How do we have a really
Yeah.
like fluid and integrated effort at the event from the pre-promotion to get the brand name out there. What do you do during the event? What do you do after the event? And I think all those pieces that might feel very kind of tactical and operational, but it helps to really like maximize any of those investments. And then thinking about how do you continue the conversation. So maybe you host a webinar, plan to host a webinar a couple of weeks after the conference,
Yeah.
and then making sure that everyone that you talk to, you have something else to kind of invite them to. Um, and then I would also say recognizing that combination of kind of brand awareness and lead generation. So all of us want to go to a conference
Yeah.
and speak at an event and walk away with a nice pile
Right.
of leads and good sales conversations to have. The harder thing is to justify the investment when we know we're reaching our audience, but not directly being able to tie that into kind of immediate conversations.
Totally.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so Ricky, I'd love to hear a little bit more about you. Can you tell me a little bit more about kind of your childhood? Did you always know you'd be kind of a founder of a technical company? Tell me a bit more about yourself.
Right. So uh, I was like, I think I should consider myself partially educated in the States. Uh, my undergraduate study was in Beijing. I graduated from Tsinghua. You probably never heard of this school, but it's an American school. Can you imagine that? That's the first technological university in China founded by Americans. That's amazing, right?
Wow. Yeah. Do
So
you any idea what year
most
that was founded? I'm just curious.
1911,
Okay.
about 115 years ago, right? Yeah, yeah. So that was before that there was a war between the Qing dynasty of China and also United States. So a lot of things happened. Then at the end of the day, I think a lot of Americans believe changing the education of China is more important, fundamentally more important. So they started using the money, which was a indemnity, funded. It eventually funded by the Qing dynasty, but the money was so it's sort of like a kickback. So yeah, but most of my classmates, Tsinghua is more dominant. I think the the school is so dominant. It's very much like the combination of Harvard and MIT in the U.S. So sort of like that. And most of my classmates, right after graduation or even before the graduation, so we basically shift over. We applied like graduate school in the US. So I attended Santa Clara University. Uh, I had opportunity to transfer with my professor to Stanford. But that was back in 1999. Then the professor decided, startup. So I joined his startup.
Oh wow.
He said, I'm gonna be a billionaire. So Ricky, join me. You're gonna be a multimillionaire. I said, that's a pretty good deal. Like I was like employee number three. Like all the top 10 employees were his students. As you can imagine, and I was a graduate, there are undergraduate, even PhD, candidate. So we all worked for him for multiple years. And that was the first merger and acquisition I experienced. And I think I enjoy it. I enjoy working for a professor, but I think it's going to be, I see a lot of things that a professor is just a pure academic kind of guy, like I think I could do better. So, the second startup was actually, that was in 2004. So, in 4 years, my wife and I, we started our first startup. So, and from there, I think I started knowing I am a serial entrepreneur, but which doesn't mean I couldn't work for large companies. Because I think like 10 years ago, I was working for, no, actually 13 years ago, I was working for Microsoft and EMC, consecutively. By that time, my wife was working on another startup after, she got out of the Harvard Business School. Uh, so that's the kind of thing I think I know. That's why I'm not, both my wife and I, we are not risk averse kind of person. So we know we can find a lot of risks simply because we don't take that at risks. Because looking at opportunities making us more exciting, like we feel so excited and I think we can create a lot of great things. So why don't we just do it? It's just a matter of, how we enjoy creating new things,
Yeah.
making the world
Yeah.
a better place.
That's
Yeah,
fantastic. How do you and your wife divide responsibilities? And has that been the same across the different kind of startups that you've run together, or have things have changed or evolved
totally.
over time?
Right. So look, my wife's name is Monica. So Monica handles more, like investor relationships, product marketing. And I'm more on the technical side and also customer engagement, like technical support, customer engagement, and also, technical all the R&D stuff. Yeah. But we sort of overlap. We do overlap a lot.
Is it fairly easy for the two of you to work together and, live together and be husband and wife? Or are there any kind of habits that you kind of stick to or have developed that help make that work well?
Well, this is a great question, very important one. We happen to be share the same, very similar kind of habits. For instance, I'm a collector. My wife is also a collector, but I collect antique porcelains. My wife also do that, but I think she has a much stronger preference into collecting, paintings, and also gemstones, things like that. So, and also, lacquer, those kind of stuff. It's sort of different, but we overlap a lot. So we don't have to argue. If you don't like my collection, go, get involved in your own collection.
Yeah. So each of you has a bit of your own thing, and then the overlap and that combination gives you, yeah, yeah, I could see that transpiring between the business and the personal side. I'm curious, what is it about kind of collecting antiques that resonates with you personally?
Ah, I think that's like I talk about meditation. Meditation sometimes can be boring because you can't just meditate, like a Taoist all the time. But collection, basically, when you are trying to collect some kind of antiques, you need to know the history, all the stories behind it. So it really broaden your eyesight. You need to learn a lot of things, Western culture, Western history, Eastern history. Uh, you can devote your whole life doing this. That's why a lot of collectors spending, their whole life doing things, doing amazing things. Yeah, I think I can truly appreciate that.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So it's almost its own form of meditation. It's kind
Oh
of
yeah,
going deep into that.
totally. Trust me. Even, because I'm a programmer, even coding, if you are so devoted, that's a form of meditation.
Yeah, yeah. As you were talking, you made me think of something that I love to do, which is mostly when I'm on vacations, but ideally would
Yeah.
be doing it more, which is collecting shells and looking for unique rocks. And it has brought me down the path, especially now with phones and image search and all of that, is being able to look at like, well, where did this likely come from? How old, like how long
Oh
has this
yeah.
been in the ocean? And it's amazing the kind of information you can get into with that.
You mentioned last time you had your honeymoon in Hong Kong. Did you collect anything there?
In Hong Kong, I did not. In Thailand, no, I did. So we were in Hong
Oh
Kong. We
yeah.
were mostly in the city, so we didn't go too far out of there.
Oh
But in
yeah.
Phuket, they had some beautiful stuff there.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah, wonderful. Yeah, Ricky, before we wrap up, I'd love to ask you a bit of an introspective question, which I could tell you're
Yeah.
an introspective kind of man. If you were sitting
Thank
in
you.
a room with your younger self, what advice would you give yourself about kind of leadership?
My advice to my younger self about leadership. Um, this is a great question. So I think last time when we chatted about this, I was my hunch was that I'm going to tell myself you need to be awakened much earlier, much sooner. Instead of waiting until 30, 35, even though that's perfectly normal. Not like uh, it like being late is actually still much better than being never. Never transform yourself. So I guess my personal experience, like over the past 20 years, uh, from a pure leadership perspective, is don't be judgmental. I was actually I was a judgmental guy, like I think like because I graduated from great school and, I tend to be very judgmental. That's my, retrospection. Uh, so to tell the younger myself, don't be so judgmental. You need to be more, you need to be, having a lot of like empathy. You need to understand people come from different backgrounds. They may have a different perspective. All of us are future of the universe. So be a loving person. That's the most important thing. I think I'm still doing this today. Sometimes even my son can tell me that you need to be more loving. Don't be too tough on yourself and other people. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice. I'm thinking both on the personal side. I have, before becoming a parent, and I would see a child like throwing a tantrum in the supermarket, and you wonder kind of what are these parents doing? And then so right, very judgmental, of course. And then after becoming a parent and having kids that are crazy in the supermarket, um, realizing, oh, poor parents, they're doing everything they can. They're just doing their best. They might be having a hard day, or. So I think that that kind of empathy, definitely on the
Oh,
personal side. But I think, as you say, like understanding that every person on your team, every person you're working with, everyone has their own challenges, their own insecurities, things
right.
going on in their personal lives, and so understanding that everyone is, for the most part, just doing the best they can.
Totally. 100%.
Yeah. So Ricky, before we wrap up today's conversation, can you tell our listeners where they can reach you if they want to get in touch?
Sure. Email would be much better because since I travel all the time, my email, ricky@ultipa.com, ultipa.com.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. Well, this has been a very interesting and engaging conversation. So thank you for everything that you've shared with us.
All right. I hope so. Thank you. Thank you, Natalie. Have a good day.
Thank you. You as well. And thank you too to everybody that's listening. I know I loved hearing so much about what Ricky shared with us. And so if today's episode gave you any valuable insights, and I'm sure that it did, please share this with someone. We know that sharing this kind of knowledge and experiences helps us all grow as leaders and helps us drive successful transformation and evolution in ourselves and our organizations. So thanks again, Ricky. And this has been another wonderful conversation on Shift and Thrive. See you all next time. That's a wrap for this week's episode. For show notes and more, visit shiftandthrivepodcast.com. A special thank you to our sponsor, Magnitude Consulting, bringing you the thinking power of a growth consultancy and the getting it done power of a full-service marketing agency to help B2B companies fuel their growth. For more information on Magnitude and to get your complimentary transformation readiness assessment, visit magnitudeconsulting.com/getready. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.